a dragon, a goat, 7 horns, total destruction, rebirth, a new heaven, a new earth. Revelation has it all. Come join me as I take a walk through the book of Revelation and see what was on John's mind in the island of Patmos. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Coffee, the Bible, and Page. I am Page, your caffeine-imbued host. Here's my caffeine. In the beginning, coffee, and lo, it was very good. All right, well, we're continuing our jaunt through Revelation. We're in chapter 9, and I've split chapter 9 into 2 portions. Today, we're going to work through the first 12 verses. Now, my work process for these devotional Bible studies has usually been to do a basic outline on Monday, a rough narrative draft on Tuesday, rewrite that draft on Wednesday, give it more thought, and have my podcast-ready narrative written on Friday and then recorded over the weekend. I have a confession to make. I didn't even begin preparation for this Bible study until Wednesday. Why? Because so far, this is the weirdest thing I've ever encountered in Revelation. I didn't know where to start with it. I didn't know what to think of it. It took until Wednesday for me to draft the very first sentence. To me, the revelation given to John is the deep end of the theological pool. I get the sense that I'm not so much swimming in the deep end as I'm just thrashing around trying to stay afloat. I find myself questioning my knowledge and understanding of eschatology, which is the study of end times, as I progress through this letter. Perhaps, in the end, that's how it's supposed to be. I'm being reminded, as a professor once told me, Mr. Garwood, please remember, you've been wrong before. So I am reconsidering some of my former thoughts about the end times. I sense that some of my theology is in the process of being rebooted. So let's get started. Verses 1 through 12 of chapter 9. I'll just read the passage first. The 5th angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of the scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth, or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. During those days, people will seek death but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. Now the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like a woman's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, that is, the destroyer. The first woe is past. 2 other woes are yet to come. All right. The first woe begins when the 5th trumpet is sounded, which is what's happening here. This marks a dramatic shift in the nature of the judgments in Revelation. Up until this point, trumpet judgments have been largely environmental, affecting the land, the sea, the sky. But now the focus turns towards the spiritual, physical, and psychological torment of humanity. It's far more personal. As the 5th trumpet sounded, John's vision shifted once again. Reading this part of his vision is like reading the opening of a horror film. I can just hear a narrator intoning, he saw a star that had already fallen from heaven to earth. This was no ordinary star. It was a being. And to this being was given the key to the abyss. With the turning of that key, something ancient and dark was unlocked. Smoke surged upward like the billowing clouds from a great furnace, darkening the sky, blotting out the sun. The very atmosphere seemed to turn toxic, as if creation itself recoiled from what was being released. From the swirling smoke, a swarm of creatures arose, grotesque, terrifying, unlike anything John or anyone else had ever seen. They looked like locusts, but not the kind that devour crops. These were not agents of agricultural destruction. See, locusts always devour vegetation, but here they're told not to harm the grass, and instead to torture only unbelievers, those not protected by the seal of God on their forehead. They had a far more sinister purpose, these locusts. Their mission was not to damage the earth, the grass, or the trees, but to torment the very people who walked on it, those who bore no sign of belonging to God. Only those marked with the divine seal of the living God, the ones claimed by heaven in an earlier vision, were spared. For 5 months, an eerie parallel to the typical lifespan of the actual locusts, these creatures spread terror across the earth. But they were forbidden from taking lives. Their sting was like that of a scorpion, and their effect was agony. People afflicted by them would long for death, would chase after it like a thirsty traveler chases a mirage in the desert, but death would flee from them. Their pain would be unrelenting, a gnawing, spiritual, perhaps even physical, kind of torture that no medicine or escape could cure. Well, perhaps a bubonic-like global plague? And as if that weren't terrifying enough, more details given. John's description of the creatures becomes even more horrifying. They appeared as war horses, prepared for battle, armored and swift, built for destruction. Their heads were crowned, perhaps to signify dominion or authority, yet their faces bore the unsettling likeness of humans. Maybe that suggests cunning or intelligence. They had long flowing hair like that of a woman, perhaps a perverse mockery of beauty, and their teeth were sharp like lions, predatory and cruel. Their bodies were covered in something like iron breastplates, and their wings beat the air with a sound like many chariots rushing into war. Their tails, like those of scorpions, carried the instruments of their torment, and from these tails came the stings that punished humanity. Now, these locusts were not acting randomly or without leadership. They had a king, an angel of the abyss. In Hebrew, his name was Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon, both names meaning destroyer. And this wasn't just a title, it was a revelation of his nature and intent. This angel, whatever his precise identity, stood in direct opposition to the Creator. He was a ruler of the underworld who brought chaos in his wake. Now, as this vision comes to a close, John notes solemnly, the first woe is past, 2 more yet to come. Whew. It was as if heaven itself was whispering a warning. This is just the beginning. All right, so there we have it. What might this mean? Are the locusts in Revelation 9 literal or symbolic? Well, the answer depends a lot on your interpretive lens. Let's walk through the main perspectives. There's a literal view. Some scholars and readers take the view that these locusts are actual demonic beings that will be released in the end times during the Great Tribulation. They aren't just bugs. These are supernatural entities, perhaps never seen before, that God will allow to physically torment people. The fact that they come from the abyss, a place associated with demons and fallen angels, supports this. Their description, human faces, lion's teeth, iron armor, scorpion tails, is so bizarre it doesn't match anything in the natural world. That lends weight to the idea that these are real, but supernatural, not metaphorical. In this view, the torment they inflict is real, physical, and part of God's end-time judgments. Then there's a symbolic view. Others see these locusts as a symbol, a vivid metaphor for something else. Here are a few symbolic interpretations. False religions, ideologies. These locusts could represent deceptive belief systems, heresies, even spiritual attacks that bring mental, emotional, or spiritual torment, but not literal death. Their human faces and lion teeth suggest cunning and savagery, while the torment parallels the way false ideologies can lead to despair or ruin. Could stand for demonic possession or spiritual oppression. This could describe experiences experienced by people who have rejected God. This would make their sting more emotional, psychological, or existential. The 5-month period could symbolize a limited time of spiritual chaos allowed by God to drive people towards repentance. It could stand for military forces or armies. Some see the locust as a symbolic representation of human armies, especially in apocalyptic literature style. This interpretation gained popularity during times of intense warfare, for example, during World War I or World War II. Some said the locust could symbolize helicopters, tanks, or other mechanized weapons. Now, this is speculative, but it's part of the conversation. So what is it? Literal or symbolic? If you're looking for a definitive, unshakable interpretation from me at this moment, I'm going to have to confess you're not going to find it. And perhaps that answer will be frustrating to some. I understand that. We long for clarity. We want certainty, especially when we encounter imagery as disturbing and vivid as what we find here in chapter 9. But I'm just going to be real with you. I am in a season of theological flux when it comes to this portion of Revelation. I don't have a hard, immovable opinion about the identity of the locusts, or even every specific detail of the torment described in these verses. And to take it a step further, I'm not entirely convinced that any of us can know with absolute certainty what all of this truly means. John himself was grappling with the weight and the mystery of what he saw. The language he uses is prophetic, poetic, symbolic, terrifying. It's meant to provoke wonder, awe, and perhaps even a bit of holy confusion. The early church did face brutal opposition from the likes of Nero and Domitian, emperors who persecuted Christians mercilessly. Could that be what John is communicating here? I have an issue with that point of view, because in the horrific tribulations imposed by Nero and Domitian, it was the believers who were the focus of the evils of Rome. In this vision, John writes specifically that everybody except the believers was attacked by these nightmarish locusts. So as a result, I believe that Revelation points far beyond the first century, even beyond our own time, to a future reality not yet fulfilled. So when I read Revelation 9, I don't see a metaphor for the past. I see a warning of something still to come. I believe this chapter describes a very real, very supernatural, and deeply horrifying event or series of events that is yet to unfold in human history. It speaks of a time when the restraint of God will be lifted in part, and forces from the abyss, spiritual in nature, will be unleashed to torment those who have rejected him. So, I guess, for the present, I'm a futurist. For the present. Do I believe that these horrifying creatures described here are literal? The jury's out on that. Whatever these things are, I am currently in the camp that says this hasn't happened yet, as human history, to my knowledge, hasn't recorded a time where everyone except Christ followers have been tormented. To the contrary, throughout history, Christians have, more often than not, been the focus of persecution and violence. But even in this, I see hope. God has always had a pattern of shielding his people amidst judgment. He preserved Israel as they passed through the waters of the Red Sea, while Pharaoh's army was swallowed behind them. He sealed Noah and his family within the ark while the flood destroyed the world around them. That same protective pattern is seen here too. The people of God, those sealed by his name, will be supernaturally protected even while the rest of the world groans under the weight of judgment. And still, we must not ignore the foreshadowings of this event throughout history. the demonic madness that mankind has inflicted upon itself. These are echoes, distant rumbles of the storm that's yet to come. The torments of Revelation 9 may not be entirely unfamiliar when that time comes, because we've tasted them before, albeit in shadow. So, where does that leave me? Well, it leaves me watching. It leaves me praying. It leaves me clinging to Christ, trusting that whatever form these judgments ultimately take, literal or symbolic, future or unfolding, God will not abandon his people. He didn't abandon them in Egypt. He didn't abandon them in the ark. He won't abandon us in the days to come. And perhaps that's the point. Not that we would decode every symbol here, but that we would be found ready, marked by his seal, resting in his protection, and standing firm in his promises no matter what storms may come. That's a good place to stop. I'm Paige. Here's my coffee. And may the record show that, lo, it is still very good. I'm out of here. Have a great day. God bless you. Bye-bye. Don't forget to join me at www.patreon.com/coffeebiblepage or my website, www.coffeebiblepage.com. Have a glorious and blessed day. Bye-bye.